We are back for part 2 with my good friend Ragnar. If you didn't watch the previous video about cognitive dissonance and core beliefs, Ragnar is a mental health professional, mental health clinician, and a registered psychiatric nurse who has many years experience in the field of psychiatry. And
Did you just call me old?
and is here to offer us some insight into how to stay sane in this dog crazy world. So Ragnar, I have a lot of people who watch my videos who are suffering because of the selfishness, the ignorance, and just the general lack of decency and empathy and respect of many dog owners. I'm not going to say all dog owners, but I would say the majority. Whether it be being tortured by the neighbors' barking dogs, or there's so many ways we suffer. People who don't like being around dogs have no choice but to be around them on airplanes, in stores, restaurants. People are bringing their dogs everywhere now. There's no way to, if you don't like dogs, too bad, because they're everywhere. They're bringing them into hospitals, libraries, schools. And there's also the fact that if you tell people that you don't like dogs, you're branded a cold-hearted, unloving monster without a soul. And people know this, so they tend to be quiet about their feelings and keep it to themselves, and force themselves to pet their friend's dog, to be polite, and just, well, that's minor, I think, compared to people who are actually suffering, by having their neighbors' pit bulls roaming onto their property. They feel terrorized. A lot of people don't even feel safe to go for walks anymore, or to bring their kids to the park, because there are a bunch of dangerous dogs running around our communities now. And when we confront these owners, inevitably we're met with hostility, and it never goes well. So, how...
Never say never.
Okay. Most often doesn't go well.
It often doesn't, yeah.
And so I'm wondering if you have any tips for my viewers on how we can, preserve our mental health living in this absolutely crazy world where it seems like people have just lost their common courtesy and decency and respect for each other.
It's a difficult one. People that see all these things happen, the media is not helping with showing us all these negative things, all these difficult things that are happening in the world. Again, there's a very negative reporting structure. All the good things are not really...
a negative what? Reporting?
Reporting.
Oh.
And on the internet, it's not all the cool stuff that happens in the world. No, most of the time, all the bad stuff that happens in the world comes jumping at you.
Yeah, so we're bombarded with horrific images and news stories, yeah.
There's a very interesting thing called mental filters that is part of the, some of the psychological processes that are described in something called CBT, cognitive behavior therapy. Mental filters act kind of like as sunglasses would to keep the UV rays out of your eyes. Mental filters are often, we all keep them in place. They're unconsciously part of our existence. But what often happens is, especially people that are depressed or anxious, for instance, apply an interesting mental filter where often the good things in our world and in our life are filtered out. Right. And we focus more on the negative things.
Yeah.
And so to protect yourself from that is, first of all, to recognize it. Recognize that you are using a mental filter. What I really enjoy in from CBT that really works is learn to be more mindful.
Yeah, mindfulness is something that I think we should talk about here, because I noticed that for myself. There are a lot of things I enjoy. I have my family, my husband, my hobbies, and different things I like to do that give me joy. But what happens is, like, when I get wrapped up in this dog stuff, I get so focused on it that
your mind gets so full with all that stuff.
Yeah.
And that is not what mindfulness is.
Right.
Mindfulness is to bring things back to your senses.
Right.
What can you see? What
The
can
here
you
and
hear?
now.
What can you smell? The here and now.
Yeah.
And when you get wrapped up with your mind being full with all those other things, yes, you will usually raise your anxiety levels. You will raise your levels of emotion. Often frustration and anger will all be raised. And that can lead to, especially if you have that every day, it can lead to problems with sleep.
All kinds of health problems, and physical problems even.
Blood pressure issues, immune system issues.
Yeah.
But also depression.
Right.
Is
anxiety.
A big one.
And so mindfulness is something you need to practice. You have to work at it. It's not something that comes easily to a lot of people, right?
No.
You have to make an effort, bring yourself back to the moment, and remind yourself that you should be practicing mindfulness, because it's so easy for our minds to just run away on us.
Yeah, to be full with all kinds of things.
Yeah.
And that is a learned behavior.
It is, eh?
Yeah, we've taught ourselves to do this.
Yeah.
And so we can unlearn that.
Right.
By practicing mindfulness.
And the more you practice something, the more natural it becomes.
Yep.
It's like grooves, hey? Grooves in your mind. We talked about that before. Like, when you keep doing the same thing over and over again, it just becomes so natural and so easy because you're so used to doing that.
Yep.
It's like a groove. It becomes deeper, and it's hard to get out of that groove. But then when you make the effort to do something differently, that creates a new rut, or not rut, a new groove. A new groove that you get into,
and it might be very, very shallow at first, but you can make that groove deeper by practicing it more and more.
So mindfulness, and then also it's acceptance. Like, I'm noticing for myself, what's actually helped me is to tell myself, all right, you know what? This is the world we live in now. Yeah. It's not the same world I grew up in.
No.
It's different. I think it's crazy. It's very sick. Sorry about the noise, guys. We're just sitting here in a parked car outside. There's all kinds of traffic around us. Okay, I think that noisy car is gone now. But there's something I heard about called radical acceptance. Okay? And that's like just coming back to saying to yourself, this is just the way it is now. And what can I do about it? There's not much I can do about this. I can't change the world.
And radical acceptance is a very interesting concept where you really... often it starts when you realize that your mind is so full and so full of all these thoughts, like, oh, how could this have happened? Why is this happening?
It's not fair. It shouldn't be this way. That's what I tell myself a lot.
Should, would, could. You should on yourself.
They should know better.
Yeah.
They should be more respectful.
And all those thoughts will raise all those anxiety levels.
Yep.
And so radical acceptance is an interesting concept where you really go like, okay, right now, right here, it doesn't really matter how we got here, but what do I need to move forward?
Right.
So not look back anymore, because that's not where we're going. Look forward. Like, what do I need to move forward right here, right now?
Right here, right now, yeah.
Do I need a break? Do I need to just listen to some music and relax?
Do I need to put my earplugs in?
Exactly.
Do I need to turn on the dehumidifier or white noise machine to drown out the sound of the barking?
Yeah. Do I need to go take a bath? Do
I need to pull out my pepper spray or whatever? And that's going to be subject for a future video, guys. My next video is going to be about protecting yourself against dogs. But
like physically protect yourself, right?
Like I noticed that with myself. I've practiced that. It used to be where I would see an off-leash dog and get really angry. I still get angry, but it's less so now because I apply that. I say to myself, I can't really change this situation. Is there an immediate danger here? Like we talked about that. It's feeling like you're in control. Hey, like because often I get upset when I feel like I'm not in control. I want the world to be a certain way. I want people to be respectful. I want to be able to bring my kids to the park without worrying about an off-leash dog.
Exactly.
But you know what? That's not the world I live in right now.
No. And the thing is, when you mention control, that's quite an interesting one. The frustration comes when we try to control things that are not in our control.
Yeah, but there are certain things that are in my control because...
Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
Your response to.
Yeah.
You can control
My
your
response.
response.
Yeah.
So...
Sorry, guys. Okay.
So
I can choose, but this is still hard because you've told me this, that I can choose to put the kids in the car and leave if I feel like it's an unsafe situation. But then I get angry because I feel like I shouldn't have to leave.
And right there, you're shooting on yourself.
And there it's the shoulding. Yeah, I'm shoulding. I should not say that word. And there I go, I just did it again.
Yeah. No, but it's interesting. When that happens, you put more psychological pressure on yourself.
When I say should.
Yes.
Yeah.
And what you're always also doing, removing yourself from the situation is a very important defense mechanism. When you tell yourself, like, I should not have to do this, you are denying yourself that way out. And therefore putting yourself on even more pressure because
I still get out of the situation, but I do it with anger.
Yeah, you hate it, and you hate the other people.
Like I shouldn't have to leave right now. You know?
You hate the other person for it.
Yeah, like because I feel like they are controlling my day.
Yeah.
You know, they're deciding when I have to leave the beach.
Yeah.
I want to stay at the beach.
But they're not.
You know.
You decide.
Yeah.
And that is your response to them.
Yeah. Right.
So, and that again is CBT, where you change your thinking about these things.
That's a big thing, CBT, eh?
Yeah.
And what is CBT? It's changing your thought.
Cognitive behavior therapy. It is the idea that our thoughts lead to certain emotions that lead to certain behaviors.
So, in other words, whenever we're suffering, it's not because of the event, it's because of our thoughts
About
regarding
the event.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, and that gives you the control back.
So what are some things we could tell ourselves instead of the things that I know a lot of us are telling ourselves, like those inconsiderate assholes, right? Like they're...
Yeah. And then you're engaging already in a lot of anger.
Yeah.
And that usually doesn't get better.
So you've helped me with this, like, because I find myself changing that inner dialogue. You know, when I see a person who's disregarding the laws or thinking they're above the laws, it's like, well, there's a sick person, you know? Mm-hmm. It's not anymore like, I don't say there's a real jerk. But then, I don't know, I have viewers that say that, you know, narcissism is not an illness. I don't know. Sometimes I think they are just bad people. They are just nasty people.
Yeah.
But, I don't know, regardless, there's like, it's like I have the option of getting angry at them or just accepting that that's the way it is right now and what can I do to take care of myself and my kids. And,
to bring it back to you.
Yeah.
But it's a very interesting one too that kind of I think is helpful, that could be helpful, I think, is to remind yourself that when you venture into the past in your mind, when you look behind you, what you usually do is you bring depression into your now.
Yeah.
Because what often our mind does, it reminds us of the bad things that have happened, the poor choices that we have made.
Things that we have lost.
Yeah, or the bad things that other people have done to us.
Uh-huh.
So what you're doing is going back brings often negative things into your present situation. To recognize that when your brain's doing that. Because, you know, that very interesting saying where, you know, the only thing that the past is good for is to learn from it, right? But how often do we go back in there and just ruminate about it and just feel the bad feelings that you had then?
It reminds me so much of the word resentment. Did you know what resentment means? Where the root of that word comes from? It's the French ressentir, which means to feel again.
Yeah.
So I do that a lot, like, I think I'm getting a little better at it, but I used to do that a lot. Like I would see an off-leash dog at the beach or, you know, whatever, have an unpleasant negative encounter with a dog owner. And then I would be thinking about it all day, like long after it had happened. I'd still be ruminating over it and feeling angry about it.
Yeah. Let me just finish the little analogy there.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You know, looking back brings in depression.
Yeah.
But then the other bit is when you project your mind into possible futures.
That causes anxiety.
Because what we often do is we expect people to be there and do silly things.
We have expectations.
Yeah, but bad expectations.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So that is kind of imagining bad things that will happen. So that brings anxiety into your now.
Yeah.
So,
I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm going to have to hold that thought. Finish your thought. Yeah.
so what you can do is, when you go back into your mind, you can also kind of switch that and go like, okay, I'm going to remember some good things that have happened.
Right. You can control what you think.
Yes.
Yeah.
As long as you're, mindful of it.
Yeah.
Right?
I think a lot of people, and I used to be one of them, I used to think that I can't control what I think. It's just these thoughts just come up and I can't control them. It's like...
And cognitive behavior therapy is very much helping a person regain control of their thoughts.
Yeah, and that's empowering, eh?
Yes.
Yeah.
So, and then to be mindful of like, okay, where am I at? What do I need? That emotional first aid.
Yeah.
Did I just really get hurt?
Yeah, we talked about that. First aid, we usually think about our physical bodies when it comes to first aid, but there's a whole thing about mental first aid.
Yeah.
I'll try to find a link and put it in the description for you guys.
It is so interesting when you look at it. Like little kids, toddlers know exactly what to do when they have a scrape. They know that you need to clean it and you need to put a Band-Aid on your boo-boo, right? But we are not taught how to deal with
Emotional wounds or mental wounds.
yeah, rejection.
Yeah.
Or negative comments.
They should be teaching that stuff in schools, honestly.
Yeah. So it often means that we do cope with them, but we learn ineffective coping mechanisms.
Right? Yeah.
By
Yeah, we go
hiding
eat a bag
or
of chips or...
emotional eating.
Yeah.
And avoidance.
And then drugs and alcohol.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there are a whole bunch, and CBT kind of helps you sift through your coping mechanisms and go like, okay, what works for me, what doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
And then if you find that one coping mechanism really doesn't work, learn new stuff. There's all kinds of things that that YouTube can teach you about it. Self-help books. CBT is a really cool therapy that you can do yourself.
Yeah.
There's cool books, the CBT for Dummies, for instance.
You told me about a really good website. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
I'm going to put the link in the description too. It's like a whole online self-help.
Yeah, modules like keltyski.com.
That's it.
Is a KELTYS KEY.
Yeah, I'll put
Kelty's
the link.
Key.
I'll put the link in there for you guys.
And really cool modules to just learn. About anxiety, depression, insomnia, panic.
Yeah.
Really neat.
Yeah.
And then there is a really cool English site, getselfhelp.co.uk.
Right. Yeah.
It's doesn't look as fancy, but it's it has some really neat description of all the different psychological mechanisms, thought patterns. The mind bully, for instance.
Yeah.
I dare you to look that up.
Okay.
Or the poisonous parrot.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but we're going to keep this about dogs, though,
Yes.
right, guys? Because I think that's like the source of a lot of our suffering. What's DBT?
Dialectical behavior therapy. So that focuses more on managing your emotions.
Okay.
Because what often happens is
not managing your thoughts.
No.
That's CBT.
Yeah.
DBT is managing your emotions.
To be able to manage your thoughts, you need to be not in a fight and flight response.
Right.
So DBT is more, it helps people that are continuously in that fight and flight response to help bring that down.
To soothe them and to get them out of that fight or flight response.
Yes.
I see.
And mindfulness is a huge factor in that.
Do those websites you talked about have modules about DBT also? I wonder.
Possibly.
I'll find some links to help you guys.
But CBT and DBT are very
they go together.
closely connected.
Yeah.
But they are. Yeah, there's some really helpful stuff out there.
Yeah. I was going to talk. You were talking about expectations, and I was thinking to myself, like, that's another thing that you've told me is not to have expectations, because that would be the source of my suffering. I would expect people to know better.
Yeah.
I would expect people to receive the information that I put in front of them and open their eyes and go, aha, you're right.
Yep.
Oh, and then, have like an epiphany or something, change their actions or change their beliefs. It doesn't work like that. Then I would get really frustrated.
Yep.
Why? Because I expected them to have a different reaction.
Exactly.
So So managing your expectations is really key also, isn't it?
Yeah. Set your expectations lower.
Have no expectations.
That's difficult, but
But yeah. But now it's like at a point where I'm expecting negative things, like
well, then you won't be surprised by it.
exactly, like I don't expect any different, like
And then you can plan for it too.
yeah. Yeah. There's a dog over there. I'm just checking, and I think it's on a leash. So, if any of you guys have any questions for Ragnar, not his real name, he'd be happy to answer them for you.
Yep. Sure.
On this channel in the comments section, leave him your questions, and yeah, we can have some discussion about psychiatry, psychology, anything you want to talk about. So I can't think of anything else. I think we covered most of what I wanted to talk about.
Cool.
So thanks for watching, guys, and stay tuned for my next video where I'm going to talk about keeping ourselves safe, keeping our physical selves safe, protecting ourselves physically from dogs. Thanks for watching, and remember, the future is dog-free.